Says the Mishnah on the bottom of 45b, Hamotias Ishto Mishum Shemra. If a person decides to divorce his wife because there were rumors about her that she was adulterous, Lo Yachzer, he's never allowed to remarry her. Mishum Neder, let's say he divorces his wife because she took vows in public, she took vows and he doesn't want her to be, he doesn't want to be married to somebody who's a vow taker. Well, Yachzer, he's never going to be allowed to marry her back. And Rashi already tells us that the Gemara is going to have two reasons why, two theories as to why, if he divorces her for these reasons, he can't marry her back. One reason is because of Kilkua, that we're concerned that either he'll annul the vow or he'll decide that he'll learn that the rumors weren't true. And if he had known this, he'll say, I never would have divorced her. So he'll claim that divorce was not valid. Meanwhile, she'll have remarried and she'll have children, and then those children will be in doubt. The other theory is because Pritusa, we don't want her to be vow taker, and we want to penalize her for being with men that she's not supposed to be. Rabbi Yehuda says, called Neder Sheyadu Bo Rabim Lo Yachzer. Rabbi Yehuda says, listen, if this is a vow that people know about, then Kol Neder, Rabbi Yehuda says, any vow that people know about in public, Lo Yachzer. Any vow that people know about in public, he's not allowed to bring her back. And what's the reason? Because such a vow can never be annulled. So Rabbi Yehuda is not concerned about, Rashi says, Kilkua. Rabbi Yehuda is not concerned about the idea that people will that he'll claim, if I had known this, I wouldn't have never have divorced her. His whole concern is we don't want the Jewish women to be prutos with Nadarim, to be making too many vows. So therefore, if she makes it in public, that's our concern, because that's what everybody knows about. So therefore, we penalize her. But if people don't know about it, then he can annul it. So therefore, then he's able to take her back because nobody knows about it, and he can annul the vow when he hears about it. Rabbi Meir says the opposite. Meir says, "Kol neder shetzarach hakiras chacham lo yachzer." He says any vow. Meir says that you require going to a chacham to analyze it, that you're not going to be able to take her back. What's the reason? What's the reason for that? But if you don't need the chacham, you could remarry her. What's the reason? So Rashi explains that if you have to go before the chacham, the husband can annul it. So therefore, that he's not able to take her back. But if it doesn't require the chakiras chacham, you can. So Rabbi Meir says, what's the reason? Because of kilkua, because of we're worried that he's going to claim I never would have divorced her. So therefore, it's a vow that he wasn't able to annul on his own. He won't realize. He said, "Oh, I could have gone to a chacham, and the chacham would have annulled it." And so therefore, he can't. He's never going to. We warn him, you're not going to be allowed to marry her back. Whereas if he could have annulled it, they'll say you could have annulled the vow, and so therefore he's able to remarry because there's no concern about kokua. And Amar Rebbe Lezer. So Rebbe Lezer says, "Lo asruzel nezer." Rebbe Lezer says, no, just the opposite. Rebbe Lezer says they didn't say that anything that requires chakiras chacham, you're not allowed to take her back. The whole source of it was because of a vow that you made yourself. I mean, is that a vow that does not require chakiras chacham? Because by tzarach we wouldn't have needed to be concerned about, because he can't say, oh, if I had known this, if I know the chacham would annul the vow, I never would have divorced her, because we know that he never would have gone to the chacham. A person doesn't want his wife to be embarrassed by going to the court and to go in front of the court. So what's the reason why we won't allow her to take it back if he divorced her because of vows? Because of a vow that does not need a chacham, and that a husband is able. And so therefore, since he could have annulled the vow on his own, we don't want him to say, oh, if I had only known that I could have annulled the vow on my own, I never would have divorced her. Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda says, Ma'isa b'tzidan, there was an incident at Tzidan, be'echad sha'amar ishto, a person had said to his wife, if I don't divorce you, me'eni migar shecha, if I don't divorce you, v'gersha, and then he divorced her, v'tiru lo chachamim shiachzirenam, and they tikun olam. Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda says there was an incident in Tzidan where he said to his wife, Konem, He takes a vow if I don't divorce you, and then he divorced her, and the Chachamim allowed him to take her back on account of Tikkun Olam. And the Rashi tells us here, we have to wait for the Gemara to explain this. So now we go to the two theories about why if he divorced her because of Motzi Shemra or because of rumors about her promiscuity, or else because of a vow, he's not allowed to remarry her. So the first is Amar Yosef Bar Miyumi Amar Nachman. It's only if he says specifically when he divorces her, I'm divorcing you because of these rumors about you, or Mishum Neder Ani Motziacha, or I'm divorcing you specifically because you're a vow taker, on top of 46a. Because Savar, that he's of the opinion, Taima, what's the reason why if he says these reasons he can't remarry, or Mishum Kilkula, because he's saying specifically, I'm specifically divorcing you for these reasons, and therefore, therefore, if he said to this at the outset, okay, well, that was never my intent to divorce you if I would have known that the rumors are false, or that if I would have known I could annul the vow. But if he doesn't say that, well, he'll never be able to come afterwards and claim it. An alternative version of this is Amar Rav Yosef Bar Menyumi Amar Rav Nachman. That Rav Yosef Bar Menyumi says in the name of Rav Nachman. Alternative version is they need to say to her, don't you know, Shemishum Shemra Ani Motziacha. You have to know that because of you need to know that because of these rumors, he has to say to her, you need to know that because of these rumors, I'm divorcing you. Mishum Neder Ani Motziacha. And because of these false vows, or because of the vows that you take, I'm divorcing you. Because Savar, what's the reason? My time, what's the reason? These are the position. That we just don't want the Jewish women to be filled with false vows. We don't want them to be prutzos b'arayos. We don't want them to be committing adultery, and to taking a lot of vows. So therefore, for this reason, you need to say and be explicit to teach them. So according to this latter approach, whether he said it or not, the whole purpose was just to teach her this lesson. But even if he didn't say it, it would be applicable. According to the first approach, if he didn't say it, then we wouldn't have that concern. So therefore, according to the second approach, he still wouldn't be able to return whether or not he said it. So Tanya Kulishna Kam, from Tanya Kulishna Brisa. Now I have a Brisa that supports the first reading and a Brisa that supports the second reading. Tanya Kulishna Kam, why do we say that if you divorce her because of the rumors or the vow, you can't remarry her? Maybe she's going to go marry somebody else, and they'll discover that it was a lie. The Omer, and he'll say, if I would have known that this was the case, I never would have divorced her. And the debt will be canceled, and the children will be mamzerim. Therefore, you have to say explicitly, do you know that you can't remarry her? You have to say explicitly you can't remarry her if he does this. Tanya Kushna Basra, the Brisa that supports the latter approach is Amar Boaz Bar Yosef Amar Motzi Sishim Mishum Shemer Mo Yasir Mishum Neder Yasir. So you benot shal prutus bar rayos in there. What's the whole reason why you can't remarry? Because it's a special penalty that we don't want the Jewish girls to be prutus in a rayos or in the derm, and therefore Amar Lo Ava Yodah Mishum Shemer Ani Motziacha Mishum Neder Ani Motziacha. And we say, therefore, we say there you have to know that it's because of this I'm divorcing you. Say this prior to the divorce. So therefore, and once he doesn't care and he still divorces her, he has no basis to make a claim. But it shows he doesn't like her so much. So these are the two theories. Rabbi Yehuda says, Kol neder sheyadibo rabim mo yafsir. Rabbi Yehuda says, no. Any vow that the community knows about it, he can't remarry her because that shows that it's prisusa, that she doesn't care about making vows. But if the community doesn't know about it, he's allowed to remarry her. I'm Rabbi Shimon Levi, my time into Rabbi Yehuda. What's the reasoning for Rabbi Yehuda? Because it says by the Givonim with Joshua, it says, that the Jewish people did not strike them down because they took an oath to the princes. The Givonim took a false oath that they were from a faraway land, and so therefore the Jewish people couldn't kill them. And so therefore, they could have, you might have thought that they could annul their vow, but since it was a public vow, you can't annul it. And so therefore he's saying, since you make such a vow in public, Rabbi Yehuda says we can't annul the vow, and this teaches us that he would have divorced her because she's making vows that can't be annulled. So the Gemara says, the Rabbanan would say, there the oath doesn't, the reason why you can't annul the oath is not because you can't annul a vow in public, but there it doesn't even need to be annulled because it really didn't take effect. The vow doesn't take effect at all. Them, even the Amrullah, since they claim to them, we came from faraway land. And so therefore, since they came from a faraway land, the oath doesn't take effect upon them on them at all. And the reason why they didn't kill them is Mishum Kedushas Hashem. The only reason why they didn't kill them is not because they couldn't kill them. Legally, they were allowed to. Even though legally they're allowed to, it would have been a tremendous desecration of God's name for them to kill them, because the other nations would have said that they wouldn't have understood the legal reality, and they would have said the Jewish people violated their oath. V'kama Rabbim, and what does it mean, the majority? It says that an oath that's made in public, you can't annul. According to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, an oath made in public, you can't annul. So what's the definition of the Rabbim? Nachman says Gimel in front of 3. Rabbi Yitzchak says Asar in front of 10. Nachman says Gimel because it says Yamim Beis and Rabbim Gimel. Because it says by a Zava, it says if she'll have the blood flowing for Yamim Rabbim. And we know that there, in that context, it was 3 days. Yamim is 2 and Rabbim is 3. And so therefore, Rabbim is a minimum of 3. Rabbi Yitzchak says Asar. Rabbi Yitzchak says Rabbim is 10. Dachsiv Eida, because it says by the Meraglim Asara. And also we have this, it says here in the Siyei Aida, and so therefore that's how we get to 10. We use the word Eida by the Meraglim was 10, and here we see a vow that was made in front of 10 that can't be annulled. The mayor says Kol Neder Shetzarach. The mayor said any vow that requires a Chakiras Chacham can never be annulled, whereas Rebbe Lazar says just the opposite. The only reason why they annul Rav Meir says any vow that requires Chakiras Chacham, you can't remarry her if you divorced her for that reason. But if it doesn't require Chakiras Chacham, you could remarry her. Rabbi Elazar says just the opposite. The only reason why we have a Chakiras Chacham, you can't remarry her, is because of a vow that doesn't require a Chakiras Chacham. So the Gemara says, Tanya, the only reason why you can't remarry a woman who took a vow that requires a Chakiras Chacham is because of a woman who took a vow that doesn't require a Chakiras Chacham, that you can't remarry her. What's the nature of the argument? The mayor says a person doesn't care that his wife becomes desecrated in the court, meaning he doesn't care. And so therefore, if it was a vow that requires a Chakiras Chacham, therefore he could have said, oh, if I had only known that if I could have gone to the Chacham, he would have annulled it, I never would have divorced you. So there could be a Kokula. Whereas Rebbe Lazar says just the opposite. A person doesn't want his wife to have to go to the court. So the only reason, so he would never claim, if I would have only known, I would have annulled it. So he said, so what's the reason? The reason is, if I had known that I personally could have annulled the vow, I never would have divorced you. And then from there, we say, Chakiras Chacham, we're also going to say Lo Yachzir. And then the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda Maisa B'tzidan. Gemara says, what's going on here? My Tana the Katani Maisa. What's the incident? The fall of the mission doesn't make sense. The Gemara explains Chisuri Mechzer, the Mishnah is missing words. V'achi Katani. This is what the Mishnah is saying. B'med Var Mamurim. When do we say this? Kishnadra. When do we say B'med Var Mamurim? When do we say this halacha that somebody who divorces their wife, you're not allowed to remarry her? When she's the one who takes the vow. But if he's the one who takes the vow, yachzir. Then if he's the one who takes the vow, he can. If he's the one who takes the vow, he can remarry her. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda, Ma'asin nami b'tzida me'echad she'amar la'ishto. And Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda says there was an incident somebody in Sidon, he said to his wife, I'll take a vow if I don't divorce you. And then he divorced her. The Chachamim allowed him to remarry her because of Tikkun Olam. Gemara says, what on top of 47:6b? What kind of vow did he take? My konim. Amar Avuna ba'omer yasru kol pero shebe'olam alayim eini megar shecha. He says, I took a vow that I'm going to make all the fruit in the world prohibited upon me if I will not divorce you. And then he changed his mind, or he annulled the vow. And so then he was allowed to remarry her. Gemara says, or he changed his mind, he was allowed to remarry. Gemara says, well, that's obvious. Why would we think it's a problem? There's nothing to worry about. There's no concern about kilkua, and there's no concern about princess. Gemara says, no, wasn't that obvious? We might have made a decree because of Rabbi Nassan. The Tanya, Rabbi Nassan, Omar, another kilo banabama, a camel kilo, he kilo carbon. Now we know that we rabbis don't want you to take a vow, because if a person takes a vow, it's like you brought for uphold the vow, it's like you brought a sacrifice on a bama, because then he's going to become accustomed to Nadarim. And so therefore, maybe we're going to penalize the man too. So we say we don't make such a decree. And what is the Tikkun Olam here? What does it mean he's allowed to remarry her because of Tikkun Olam? So the Gemara says, Amar of Sheshus Aresha. No, it goes back to the first cause. They're saying all these cases in the Mishnah that we don't allow him to remarry her because of Tikkun Olam. Or alternatively, the way we have to read it is on the safe, on the final clause. This is what we're saying. The Chachamim allowed him to remarry her because the concept of Tikkun Olam, we don't have to be concerned about here because there's no reason to prohibit. Says the Mishnah, let's say he divorces his wife because she's an Ionist. That he didn't realize Ionist is a woman who she's congenitally unable to have children. He didn't recognize this about her. She's basically on the spectrum of the gender. He didn't recognize about this. And for this reason, she requires a get. Because a person, we assume that he must have had relations with her for the purposes of Kiddushin. So therefore, if somebody divorces his wife because of an Ionist, Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda says, you're never allowed to remarry her. Why? What's going to be concerned? Maybe she'll get married and have a child. And he'll say, if I had only known that she was capable of having children, I would have, even if he would have given me $100, I never would have divorced her. And so therefore, we're telling him when he's divorced her that if she's going to get the signs afterwards, you're never going to be able to remarry her. So that's the first clause. The Rabbi Yehuda says, Chacham say, we're not worried here about Kilkua. The Chacham say, we're not worried that this is going to happen. So he's still allowed to remarry her. So let's say she remarries somebody else and she has children from the second one. Now when he divorced her the first time, she was divorced without a ksuva because since he says she was an Ionist, it was a mistaken marriage, so I don't have to give her the ksuba payment. But now that she proves it wasn't a mistaken marriage, I was capable of having children. So therefore, she wants her ksuba. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar la shtikusecha yafeh midibarecha. They tell her, be quiet. That's going to help you walk. That's going to help you better than speaking. Why? Be quiet, because they'll say, if I had known in the end, then I never would have divorced you, and that's going to mess up your second marriage. So they tell her just to be quiet. The Gemara says, Omemra, the Rabbi Yehuda chayash l'kolkula. So Rabbi Yehuda says you cannot remarry her. He's worried that what's going to happen is he'll claim it wasn't a valid divorce. And so Rabbi Yehuda must be concerned about kolkula. So the Gemara says, Rabbanan lo chayash l'kolkula. But the Rabbanan are not worried. Don't we learn the opposite? Didn't we learn the opposite on the bottom of Memhei on the base? That the Chachamim there say that you can't remarry her, and Rabbi Yehuda says, so we see from here that the Rabbanan are concerned about Kokua. Rabbanan chayesh lo Kokua. Rabbi Yehuda lo chayesh lo Kokua. Rabbi Yehuda is not worried about Kokua. That's why he says it's only if it's in public. It's about pritzos. So Amar Shmuel Ipo. Shmuel says you have to reverse the positions. So Shmuel says Epoch, reverse the positions. So that's what Shmuel says. Rabbi Yehuda allows the somebody who divorced Rishon Ionis to return her, and the Rabbanan prohibit. And the Gemara says, it can't be. That if she has other children, then she wants her ksuba. Rabbi Yehuda says, tell her to be quiet. Because Rabbi Yehuda chayash l'kuku. He says, be quiet. Otherwise, they're going to make a claim against you and say it's not a marriage. Gemara says, hanami hapoch. Yeah, reverse that too. Rabbi Yehuda is not the one who said that. So that's how we have to say that Rabbi Yehuda is reversed in both cases. Abai Amar Olam Lo Tepoch. Now he says, no, they can keep the positions the way they are. Why? Rabbi Yehuda Bahi Savar Lakar Meir, V'Savar Lakar Rabbi Elazar, B'Tzarach. Rabbi Yehuda, in the case of where he divorces his wife because of the vows, and he's not concerned like Okua, because there he holds like Rabbi Meir, V'Savar Rabbi Elazar, and he also holds like Rabbi Elazar. Gemara is going to explain. B'Tzarach, when it needs a Chakira Savachacham, when it needs a Chacham to know it, Savar like Rabbi Elazar, he holds like Rabbi Elazar that a person doesn't want his wife to go to court, and so therefore he can't say, well, if I had known that I'd go to Chacham, never divorce her, because he would never have wanted his wife to go to court, so therefore the divorce is valid. But if she doesn't need to go to the Chacham, Savar like Rabbi Meir, he holds like Rabbi Meir, who says that the husband would never have not realized that he could annul the vow. And so therefore, we don't have to be concerned about Kokua in this case. The Gemara says, Amar Rabba to Rabbi Yehuda, Kasha, to Rabbanan, the Rabbanan, Lo Kasha. There's also a question, the Rabbanan. Now, Amar Rabba, so how would you explain the Rabbanan's position? So the Gemara says, well, look at the Rashi, Lo Teipuk, Rabbi Yehuda, Vada Chayshel Kokua. Rabbi Yehuda for sure is concerned about Kilkua, so therefore you can't remarry her. But Gabi Neder, what's the reason behind Neder? He's not concerned. He's concerned about Kukula by an islandess, but not by a vow. Because by a vow specifically, what's the reason? Because there he says it's not Kukula. Because by a neder that requires a Chakiras Chachamim hold like Rebbe Lazar, that there's no Kukula there because she wouldn't want him to go to court. He wouldn't want her to go to court. But when it doesn't require the Chakiras Chachamim, hold like Rabbi Meir, that the husband can't possibly claim, if I had only known, I would have annulled my vow. But what about the Chachamim? How do we explain their opposite positions? Like we said, that he's not concerned about Kukua by a neder, but he's concerned by an islandess. The Rabbanan, Lokasha. Why the Rabbanan say here that he can remarry her, but in the case of the neder, the priestess he can't? Because Man Chachamim, who are the Chachamim here? Rabbi Meir, the Amar Ba'inon Tanai Kaful, that they said that we require a double vow. And he says, if this will be the case, this will happen. If not, this will be the case. He didn't make a Tanai Kaful. He didn't make a double vow. And he didn't say when he divorced her, they divorced her because she's an islandess. And otherwise he won't. And so therefore, there can't be any mistake because he didn't make a Tanai Kaful. Okay, so the Gemara says, let's say somebody sells himself and his children to idolatry, to an idolatrous master. You're not allowed to redeem him, but his children you can redeem after their father dies. It's only when he does this 3 times. Now you don't redeem it anymore. But the first 2 times that he told himself, you have to redeem him. So the Gemara says that the Chasam Sofer says the proof for this is from the fact that it says kar. And then it says, O Eker Mishpachas Ger, Achreinim Kar Gula Tielo Echad Miachav Higalenu. So it says 3 times you have to redeem it. Gemara Kedushin explains we're not gonna, just because he fell doesn't mean that we're gonna allow him to fall. But after 3 times you don't have to redeem it. Hanu Bein Michse, so there were these people who lived in a place that was called Michse, the Yazfei Zuzeh. They used to borrow money, they couldn't pay it back. Also, the Kagarbilu, idolaters came and they returned them to be slaves by paying off their debt. Also come to Rav Huna. They came in front of Rav Huna. Amaru, my aviduchu. So he said, what can I do to you? He said, at this point, it's the third time. I don't have to redeem you. She says, yeah, when do you say you can't redeem him? He did it 3 times, but this is only the first time. I'm like, no, honey, Mirgo Reguli Davioch. This is what they do many times. This is what they are accustomed to do. They sell themselves many times. You don't have to redeem him forever. Okay, we'll stop here. The daf, beautiful daf today. And we'll stop here and pick it up, God willing, on Shabbos Kodesh. Koyach.